Last night after trick-or-treating, I had the most terrifying experience of my life. I'm a 42-year-old man for your reference. It was about 10:30 and I was just hanging out watching TV. All of a sudden, boom! Boom! There was someone smashing my front door with their fist. I was instantly freaked out. I slunk down to see out the front windows, hiding behind my plants to try and not be seen. I live in a split-level house, so my living room is about 10 off the ground. I can't see anybody, but there is a black mid-size SUV in my driveway with its lights and hazards on. Being Halloween and having an active imagination, my mind automatically goes to horror movie scenes. This is when I realized my back patio door is difficult to lock most of times and is unlocked. I creep into the basement to get a piece of wood to jam it shut. As I'm coming out of the basement, there's 2 loud bangs on the basement window along the side of my house. Half the basement is above the ground. Remember, it's a split level. I quick run up and throw the wood to jam the sliding door shut, close the blinds, and creep back up the stairs, turning all the lights off on the way to the living area. As I'm tiptoeing back up and into the living room, I can see the car pulling out of my driveway really slow. About an hour later, all seems good, and I'm kind of calming down. I'm sitting on my couch with the lights off, watching TV. I see car lights come across my ceiling from pulling up my inclined driveway. I look out, and it's the black SUV again. Now I'm really scared. I grab my phone and call 911, thinking I'm about to be in next year's urban legend. I'm on my knees, peering through the plants in my window, just watching. Nobody gets out. I can't see the make or license number, it's so dark. Just a black SUV with lights and hazards on. The SUV was pulled so far forward, their bumper was practically touching my front step slab, like fall from my front door. Nobody gets out. I can't see in the car. They just sit there. I'm on the phone with 911 telling them what happened earlier and what is happening now. The black SUV slowly reverses out of my driveway and leaves. About 20 minutes later, I see the deputy rolling through our subdivision. The subdivision is one way in, one way out, very small and a little rural. As he's coming back down the road, I see my landlord going out, who lives next door, so I open my door to go out there and tell them both what's going on. When I open the door, there is a note taped to it that says, "Derek, we're going to kill you." I'm not Derek, I don't know a Derek, and I don't know why whoever was banging thinks Derek lives here. I double time to the deputy and landlord and tell them about the note and the other happenings. He calls back up. They take the note, ask both me and my landlord a bunch of questions about who this Derek guy is. One of the deputies pulls me aside and starts asking, do I owe anybody money? Do I know anybody that would want to hurt me? Am I involved in any sort of lover's triangle? No, no, and no. He says there will be a deputy in the area, and if anything happens, call 911. Landlord was just going out for mail and swears he has never rented to a Derek. Heard anything, saw anything, nothing. Here's the really fucked up part. This morning I was in my office, which is where that patio door I jammed shut is. It was freezing cold in there. I opened the blinds and the sliding door was about 4, open, meaning someone had tried to open the door after I'd put the piece of wood in there to jam it shut. Told the landlord he already has a better lock on mine and his patio door, and built us both a better door jam. When I was about 13, my mum and dad invited round our previous neighbours from the block of flats we lived in, until I was 5 years old. Anyway, I'd been sent to bed but could still hear everyone talking about this and that, until the woman neighbour said, "Hey Diggsy's mum, do you remember when Diggsy used to complain that there was someone in his room? Well, there's a family that's just moved into the floor above who have a 3-year-old son. He is complaining of the exact same things Diggsy did." This creeped me out. I had no recollection of any of this, so the next day asked my mum. Her first reaction was, "You don't remember." Then she told me all about the weird stuff that used to happen. Footsteps up and down the hall, shit going missing and stuff. She said the final thing to happen was when she was listening to a record one day, and it started to slow down, like someone was holding a finger gently on the platter till it finally came to a stop. My mum said she snapped at this point and started shouting, "Will you leave us the fuck alone?" As soon as she said this, the record went straight back to playing normally, and we never experienced anything again. I've never experienced anything like that since, and these days I'm quite skeptical of such stories, but I believe my mum. Strangest thing is how I found out about it, from someone else 10 years later experiencing something similar. When I was really little, my parents would let me stay up late on the weekends and watch TV until I fell asleep. I really loved these times, and I would stay up later than anybody else just because I could. Well, one night I was almost asleep on the couch when I heard a noise on our front porch. It was the sound of our old-fashioned porch swing moving back and forth. I was a little scared, so I crept toward the bay windows of my living room and peeked out towards the porch. Sitting on my front porch swing was an older woman, probably in her 50s, wearing nothing but a nightgown, covered in blood and holding a huge kitchen knife. I flipped out immediately and ran screaming into my parents' room, but was too terrified to form words. My parents saw that I was upset, but when I finally was able to tell them what I saw, my dad got really angry and told me that it was just a dream and to go back to bed. I refused and kept crying and screaming until he had had enough and snatched my arm and dragged me towards the front door to prove that nothing was there. I kicked and screamed all the way trying to make him stop, but he kept pulling me. Finally, we got to the door. He unlocked it, swung it open and said, "See, there's nothing that..." To this day, I have never seen the look of fear and shock that was on his face when that woman turned and stared at both of us and slowly stood up with the knife. My dad slammed the door shut and got my mom to call the police while he went and got his gun. He went back to the door with a 12 gauge and cracked the door enough to stick the barrel out. He asked her what she was doing, and she said, "Somebody killed my husband, but it wasn't me." My dad told her that the police were coming, and she freaked out, grabbed the knife and walked away. The police found her 15 minutes later, trying to break into one of our neighbors' houses. I never slept in the living room again. Oh yeah, I forgot that after she left, my dad called and warned my crazy uncle who lived next door what was happening. Apparently, he was waiting on his front porch with his shotgun when she walked by. He pointed it at her and just said, "Keep moving, bitch." I just talked to my mom, and she said that they never really found out the whole story, but apparently she was crazy and off her medication. Her and her husband got into a fight, and she tried to attack him with the knife but didn't seriously hurt him. When he got her out of the house, she cut herself with the knife, either trying to commit suicide or make it look like her husband did it. The police never talked to us about it, so that's just what they heard from the woman's neighbors. When I was younger, we frequently visited my grandparents around holidays, even though we didn't live in the same town. My aunt lived 2 houses down from my grandparents. The lady in the house between was creepy. She was a large woman, over 6 feet. She wore logging chains around her neck, a dress and work boots. The only time I remember seeing her outside was either in her garden in the back or when she was washing the outside of her house, scrubbing the actual building. She did this often. During these times, she would yell at us kids and call us all kinds of things. She would tell us the devil would be coming for us. The adults told us to leave her alone and to avoid her. We would run the distance between my aunts and my grandparents because when you passed by, she was watching out the windows. It was creepy, and we never went alone. One Halloween, one of the cousins dared us to trick or treat her house. I remember how scared I was, but I didn't want to be a chicken. Plus, I was going with the group. One of us rang the doorbell, and there was a lot of banging noises in the house, suddenly like doors slamming. When she answered the door, she had a severed head in her hands, and we all went screaming. The adults told us it was a Halloween prop, and we knew we shouldn't be bothering her and deserved to be scared. About a month later, my parents got a phone call that the lady had tried to kill my aunt while she was bringing in groceries, and had my young cousin in her arms. The lady had one of them rope saws and had come up behind my aunt with it. She put it over her head and around her neck and proceeded to saw. My aunt naturally flipped and started kicking the door. My uncle came and beat the lady down with a fire poker. The police investigation revealed that the woman had been digging tunnels under her home, which were coming up under my aunt's, my grandparents' and another neighbor's house. She had been bringing the dirt up and putting it in the raised beds of the gardens. She also had a shrine of some sort underground, which had a few severed heads around it. My aunt survived BTW but has a long scar across her neck. Firstly, my wife is also a Redditor and has been severely traumatized by our recent experience. She does not like to talk about this, so to prevent anyone from sending her messages, this is a throwaway account. My wife and I buy our first house in February of 2010. We immediately fell in love with it as soon as we laid eyes on it. It had everything we wanted, and plus a few extras. For the first month, everything was great. Lots of painting and decorating, getting it just the way we wanted. Then weird things started to randomly happen. First it was small things, like things upstairs being moved, put in completely different rooms than where they belonged. I chalked it up to my wife, just forgetting to put things back where they belonged. The house also started to creak, pretty loud. This is a fairly new house, so I just figured it was probably settling, as most new houses tend to do. One day, the wife and I was preparing dinner in the kitchen. Our stairs sit right next to the kitchen entrance, so any noises upstairs were clearly audible into the kitchen. I turned off the water at the sink, and as soon as I did, we both heard a cough. We have no kids and no one was visiting. The windows were all shut, the television was not on. This sent the coldest chill down my spine, and I could feel the blood running out of my face. I looked to my wife, and she too had gone pale, and had this look of absolute fear. Someone was in our house and they were upstairs. I quickly grabbed the sharpest knife I could find, and my wife called the police. I walked to the bottom of the steps and stood silently and heard a loud pop creak, just like the ones I had always heard the house make. My hands were shaking, and my wife was whispering to the 911 operator, telling them we think we may have a robber in our home. The police arrive in minutes. Thankfully, they had been patrolling nearby. The officer walks slowly up the stairs, gun drawn. He calls out, "This is the police, is anyone upstairs?" No response. I'm right behind him, walking up the stairs. We look into the first bedroom and closet. Empty. No one in the half bath either. Last room is my office where I have my PC. No one in the room or the closet. I felt the tension ease away and felt like a complete tool, making this officer search the house only to find nothing. We turned to walk out of the room and right above us. Creak. I just about shat bricks. In my office closet, there is an attic access. The officer pulls the steps down and again calls out, "Is anyone up there? This is the police." No response. He turns on his flashlight and peeks his head up. He finds a man in his 40s kneeling there in the attic, looking dead at him. Gun drawn, he tells the man to come out and put his hands behind his head. They arrest the man. He didn't say a word the whole time and would not look anyone in the eye. He was scruffy looking and had dirty clothes on. Me and my wife, we're freaking out. I don't think either of us have fully gotten over it. After questioning the man in the police station, we found out that he was a homeless man who found refuge in the house while it was still on the market. He said the doors were unlocked, and so he stayed there. Apparently, a realtor must have forgotten to lock the door after showing someone the house. He said that when people would come to the house, he would hide in the second-floor attic. We bought the house, and this guy was living in it for a whole month without us even knowing. It really freaks me out still just thinking about it. Don't shrug off all those bumps in the night. You could have a homeless man living in your attic. I don't have any way to verify whether this is actually a family story or whether it's an urban legend. But here, my family has lived in rural Nebraska since they immigrated from Germany in the mid-1800s. Near the turn of the century disease was pretty rampant in the homesteading area, and it killed off members of almost every family. When someone died from illness, time was of the essence in burying them, as not to let the virus spread from the deceased to the living. This meant no wake periods, so an aunt of some unknown number of greats preceding her relationship to me dies of some disease, and she gets buried in the family cemetery on the homestead. The dogs were very fond of her, So it wasn't too surprising that after the funeral the two dogs stuck near the grave. The rest of the family began to think something of it when, a week and a half later, the dogs were still visiting her grave almost constantly. But they weren't just at the grave. They were visibly distressed, frantic, and often barking while there. This goes on for maybe 2 weeks when the family decides to check it out. They dig the casket up and open it. The deceased's hair has all been pulled out. Her fingers are raw and bloody and mangled from where, on the inside of the casket door, they can see deep scratches in the wood. She was comatose when they buried her, and she came to while underground, spending probably her last 5 or so days alive in a buried casket. I've posted this story before, possibly on another account if it sounds familiar. TLDR, something mimicked my mom's voice and slapped the shit out of me. I was like 7 or 8 years old and my mom had just tucked me into bed. I fell asleep. Then I woke up sometime later to my mom's voice saying, "Time for bed, want me to tuck you in?" I was confused by this given that she already tucked me in. I don't think I responded because I was sleepy, but then something slapped me across the face really hard. I woke up, looked around, nothing was there, weird. Obviously that freaked me out, so I hid under the covers and tried to go back to sleep. I was shaking, and I had that feeling like someone else was in the room with me, standing right behind me even though no one was there. After a minute I got slapped again, 2 or 3 more times. This was even more confusing given that I was under the blanket, so what the fuck could be slapping me? And why did it have my mum's voice? I was pretty freaked out, as you can imagine. I laid there in fear for what felt like an hour, unable to sleep. Then finally I got the courage to get out of bed and go to my mum's room to find out if the voice I heard was really her. She was asleep, and when I woke her up and told her what happened, she had no idea what I was talking about. It was not her who came into my room. She was asleep the whole time. I don't know if it was paranormal or not, maybe it was sleep paralysis or something. I definitely experienced that as a child. But I know I felt pretty awake after being slapped in the fucking face, so I'm not sure. If it was just the one slap that startled me awake, I would say it was probably just a dream. But the repeated slaps after I woke up make me doubt that. The memory of this event has always stuck with me quite vividly, and the details of the story have never changed. Personally, I don't think it was sleep paralysis because I know what that feels like, but I really have no idea if it was paranormal or not. I've heard similar stories and people are very quick to attribute experiences like that to demons, but I don't believe in that kind of thing. I'm not sure I even believe in ghosts. All I know is that experience scared the shit out of me, and I don't have a convincing explanation for it. There were a lot of other weird things that happened in that house, but that experience was by far the most extreme. I have a pretty weird one. Around 2011, I was 19 and newly married to someone in the Navy. His first duty station was Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. It was such a great house, right on base. Full garage, kitchen, separate laundry room, 2-bed, 2-bath. Beautiful. My husband worked a lot of late nights and would regularly be gone for the bulk of them, which added to my general discomfort there. That house was crazy. I would get a little creeped out there by myself. The first experience was when I was upstairs in the bathroom washing my face. The bathroom was at the top of the stairs, directly to the right, next to our bedroom. I was washing my face one evening while my husband was home. He came walking up the stairs pretty slowly and then stood right at the doorway to the bathroom just saying nothing. I was in the middle of scrubbing my eyes, so I just said, "What?" And he didn't respond, so I washed the soap off my eyes quickly and glanced up to see no one there. I yelled his name and he called down from the living room, "Yeah?" That nearly made me pee my pants, but it's just the precursor to this next part. One night, I had this strange dream. I dreamt that I was running up the stairs as fast as I could. I ran past the bathroom and through the open door to our bedroom. As soon as I reached the bedroom door, I woke in my bed, completely startled. I was laying on my side, facing the bedroom door. I always kept a nightlight on in the closet because I was such a scaredy cat, so the room was very lightly illuminated. When I woke up from the dream, I saw that in the doorway to the bedroom, there was a jet black blob that was nearly the size of the entire doorway, like I guess what you might call an orb. But it wasn't. It was oblong-shaped and irregular. It was like a cloud, and it faded fast, but it faded in on itself, like shrinking into a little ball until it disappeared completely. It was there and gone within 10 seconds. The way it shrunk, though, was just odd. The edges of the blob were pixelated, and it was like the pixels from the edges just pixelated out. That's how it shrank. It wasn't a dream, though. I sat awake for a minute wondering what the heck that was until I just closed my eyes again. I told my husband about the incident, and he really tried to talk me out of it, and didn't want to even discuss it, that is, until a few months later. Nothing much happened after the event, and life just continued on as normal and quiet. One day, out of nowhere, my husband just decided to tell me that he actually had seen something too. He worked odd hours, so he was usually in bed way before me, but was a light sleeper. He said he woke up one night because I had come in the room getting ready for bed. He said he saw what looked like a black orb right next to me as I dressed, and he said the edges of that orb were pixelated too. Allison's favorite holiday was Halloween. Even at the age of 21, she never grew out of the Halloween spirit. She still dressed up in scary costumes, went to pumpkin patches with her friends, and even enjoyed the horror movie marathons that played all October long. But this Halloween was a little different. Because of her demanding career in pharmaceuticals, Allison was now living in a small town in Pennsylvania that was over 2 hours away from her family and friends. That meant most holidays and birthdays she spent celebrating them alone. However, being the optimist that she proudly was, she decided that this Halloween she was going to thoroughly enjoy herself, despite being alone from family and friends. These were her exact thoughts that Halloween evening, as she made her way up the path to her front door. Kids in costumes were shouting for joy houses down as the neighbors handed out candy. Hurrying her pace, not wanting to miss the joy of giving candy out to the trick-or-treaters, Allison unlocked her front door and opened it. Before she stepped in, there, shoved under her welcome mat, was a white envelope. Curiously, Allison bent over and picked it up. There was no return address and only 2 words written on the front. For Allison. Wondering who would have left this here, she tore open the envelope, pulled out a letter, and began reading it. Dear Allison, how are you? I hope all is well and you're enjoying your new home. I'll keep this brief because there isn't much time. Tonight, Halloween night, be sure by 10 p.m. to lock all your doors and windows. And whatever you, do not answer your door after 10 p.m. I don't care what you hear or what you think you hear, do not open your door. Things beyond both our comprehensions will occur, and you must not open the door at any cost. Please, heed my warnings. I only wish for your well-being. Be safe, stay strong, and do not open your door after 10 p.m. With love, your Aunt Cynthia. Allison read and reread the letter. She glanced up and down her street, trying to identify a prankster or mischief. She didn't have time to worry about this poor attempt at a cheap scare. Not only did she not have an Aunt Cynthia, but the trick-or-treaters were only 3 houses away, and she needed to prepare the candy bowl. It was her first Halloween in this neighborhood, and she wasn't going to be the neighbor who neglected the children their sugar rush. She made her way inside, her mind quickly occupied with the Halloween joy, trick-or-treaters, and a night of handing out candy. Any thoughts of ominous warnings and cheap scares were long gone. By 9:15 p.m., Allison's candy bowl was nearly empty. Despite being alone, she was having a great Halloween night. She bounced back and forth from answering the trick-or-treaters and watching the horror movie marathon on TV while enjoying a glass of red wine. By 9:45 p.m., she decided to call it quits. There hadn't been a trick-or-treater for nearly an hour. This was a young neighborhood after all. Most of the kids were all sugared out and in bed. Plus, John Carpenter's Halloween was the next movie on TV, and she did not want to miss 1 second of that. She quickly got up and went to turn off her front porch lights, signaling to any tricker-or-treaters out there that she was closed for business. As she made her way to the front door, she noticed that it was 10 p.m. The letter's ominous warning came flooding back to her memory, but in her wine-induced state of being, she simply laughed at the poor attempt of a scare. As her hand went to the switch that would turn off her front porch lights, there was suddenly a knock at the door. "Trick or treat," Alison heard from the other side of the door. She reached for the doorknob and almost opened it. Almost. There was something odd about the voice, something off. Alison cleared her throat. "Sorry, all out of candy." She expected whoever was at the door to go away. What she did not expect was to see her doorknob begin to turn. She quickly turned the lock and slid the deadbolt across. "I said I'm all out of candy. I'm sorry. Try another house." Silence hung there like a dense fog. "Alison, open the door." The wine buzz she was enjoying all night dissipated. She took a step back and pulled out her phone. "If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." There was another long, drawn-out pause. "Alison, we both know they can't help you." Her front door shook violently. The frame's siding even began to splinter. Wood chips spilled to the ground. In a haste, she dialed 911. When she painstakingly explained her situation, that's when the violent attempt to break in ceased. There was an eerie calm. Alison sprinted into the kitchen and grabbed a steak knife. She opened her front door an inch to see if the maniac was still there. And that's when she saw the red and blue flashing lights. Cop cars and ambulances were scattered on the street and lawn of her next-door neighbor's house. She opened her door wider to analyze the situation. A cop came sprinting over to her. "Ma'am, please lock all your doors and windows and stay inside for the night." Alison obliged, but not before noticing that the officer's uniform was covered in dark red. She relocked her door and sat on her living room couch, waiting for sleep to come. It never did. The next morning, the local news had the answers to Alison's questions. The newscaster was calling it the Halloween massacre. Alison's next-door neighbors, the Doyles, were mutilated beyond recognition. They were a family of 6, a mom and dad, and 4 kids, all gone from this earth. What was worse, the newscaster explained, was that there was no fingerprints, no DNA or any other forms of evidence left behind. Just a family massacred with no explanation of how. Alison watched the news unfold throughout the morning, tears stinging her eyes. She scrambled through her kitchen trash until she found it. The letter left on her mat. She dialed her mother, burning with questions. "Do I have an Aunt Cynthia?" There was a pause. "Alison, is everything all right? Where is this coming from?" "Answer the question, do I have an Aunt Cynthia?" Alison heard her mother gulp. "Technically, yes." "Who is she? Why have I never met her?" Her mother sighed. "Sweetie, Cynthia was my younger sister. When she was born, her neck caught around the umbilical cord. She suffocated." Alison froze to the spot, her aunt's letter in hand. That's when she noticed that there was more writing on the back that she hadn't noticed before. She turned the letter over and read, "Sweetie, there has always been good and evil on the earth. It's up to us to protect our loved ones from the evil. We've never met, not in this life, but I am the guardian of your life. That's what family does. Stay blessed, Alison, and stay safe." Alison folded the letter to her chest. Her Aunt Cynthia was her guardian angel. Back in 1987, when I was 7, my 13-year-old big brother took me trick-or-treating with him and his girlfriend. We were later joined by his friends, twin brothers, who I'll leave nameless. They'd learned where their junior high principal lived years before, and had a tradition of kicking in the faces of her meticulously carved pumpkins and slashing her tires. They made sure to wear masks in case she heard the ruckus, and basically thought they were committing the perfect crime. Apparently she'd had enough and decided to get her revenge. She purchased 2 brass, I'm guessing the material, pumpkins, painted them to look realistic, and when one of the idiots tried kicking one halfway across Arizona, the only sound made was a crunch, followed by a blood-curdling scream. Several toes and bones were fractured. Even though I know I saw her curtain move, she never once came out of the house. The following Monday, the principal stood outside her office as students entered the building. When the broken brother, nicknamed Brothers GF, gave him, yes, it stuck, most call him BB to this day, crutched his way past her with a huge cast on his lower leg, she of course asks, "Oh sweetie, what happened to you?" She also made sure to give him her brightest smile every morning afterwards till summer vacation started. Turned out she committed the perfect crime. They couldn't even tell their parents what she'd done without admitting what they'd been doing. And the icing on the cake is that she painted laughy faces, her term, on those pumpkins the next year and has every Halloween since.